Simon, surname Zelotes, preached the gospel in Mauritania, Africa, and even Britain, in which latter country he was crucified, AD 74.
Hey, Steven.
Hey, Paul.
You know, it's funny. So we joke about this podcast and how we always record at 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because we're recording on a Saturday morning right now, but it feels like 4 a.m. on a weekday.
It does. Yeah, there's something about like Saturday where even if you're not a person that stays out late on Friday, it's like they say you can't catch up on sleep.
Yeah.
That's not really actually scientifically a thing. But there's something about like the energy of a full week where you keep going.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of it and your body goes, all right, we
Time
made
to
it.
stop. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Like God created our bodies that way.
It's true. And if we ignore it, it's like, it just hurts.
So this, even though this is a morning episode, this might be our sleepiest one.
I think so. Prepare for me to just yawn the whole time.
Yeah, we're going to have low voices and clogged ears.
Like,
yeah.
If we look stuffy, that's why.
I think that's what living in Florida is like.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's just part of it.
It's just, you can't fight it.
Yeah. We'll have to figure out like prime real estate. Like what's prime real estate
what's the
time?
least stuffy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. That I think in actual real estate. Like,
oh no,
where
no,
can
no.
I go and be the least stuffy in Florida?
Well, yeah, we'd have to leave Florida.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be like Southern California. Yeah.
Not even close to your area.
No, somewhere in the
true.
desert.
Well, I do have a story for you.
Okay. I like stories.
That's good because I have one.
Okay. I want to hear it.
So this may or may not make me sound pretentious. So I hope
we're gonna drink coffee the whole time.
Yeah, because it's early.
I don't think you're okay. You want us to think you're pretentious?
No, but it's funnier if I say it.
Okay.
So I several years ago I did a study abroad trip in London.
Okay.
So I was there for a little over a month.
Well, we already talked about how I did one in Israel.
Oh, that's true.
So we're just both pretentious.
And you were there longer, so you
So you kind of already have an out.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's that classic, the person who studied abroad one time and doesn't shut up about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's this whole podcast.
Yeah. Although we are finding consistently that an experience that I've had or you've had, we've both had the same.
That's true. So it's actually
it's kind of weird.
It's the same experience.
Like your dad and my mom grew up Catholic.
Yes.
Not in the same state, but they definitely knew each other. Because all Catholics know each other.
It's true.
By the power of the Holy Spirit. The Catholic Holy Spirit.
I love that. For the Catholic Holy Spirit.
That's a t-shirt.
I actually really like that. We have so many t-shirt ideas.
Yeah. It's true.
Actually, you know what's funny? This is a total side point to the story I'm trying to tell.
I like to derail you if I can.
Yeah, and it always works. Because my mind just goes. But when the class that I took in London was a mythology class.
So I didn't derail you.
Oh.
You're back on track.
Well, I'm on a different track.
Okay.
Not the one I was trying to be.
Sorry.
I caught a different train real quick.
Mythology course
which
in
was
London.
Kind of fun. So we got to go around and like.
That's a great place to have a mythology course.
So and there's cause such cool just old stuff there.
Yeah.
You've got the British Museum downtown, so we would go and just like explore there, and our teacher would just walk through, talk about myths the entire time. It was awesome.
It's funny that we get excited about old things and places, but not old people. Why is that?
I wonder if it's because
it smells.
The smell. Less pruny.
Well, maybe it's because things
I'm so
and
excited
places.
to be an old person.
I know, same.
Yeah.
But like, maybe it's because things and places don't talk back. Right?
We like when we can enjoy it at our pace. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there's got to be a
speed.
Yeah, there's got to be there's got to be a selfish reason for that. There's got to be.
There's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. Yeah, because there's even times for myself where I'm really interested in something at the moment. Mm-hmm. Then as soon as I ask the question and someone starts telling me the story, I'm like, I'm done. I'm not getting it the way I wanted to.
Yeah, that's everyone listening to this podcast.
They're like, just get on with the story. Well, with that being said, so it was
Myths
funny
in London.
because obviously people in the UK, in England, they speak
They're all old.
English.
Right.
All of them are old.
Feels
Every
that way.
single one.
They all feel ancient.
But they don't speak the same English that we speak.
Right.
Whereas like their slang and their different words that they use, which is the same as slang.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was trying to have another thing to add. There's differences. And so one of the things is I've never been asked what my surname was.
Okay.
Because I get asked in the U.S. what my last name is.
Right.
So when I was there, they said, "Oh, what's your surname?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" You can just call me Paul. Like,
But also, like, are they implying you're male?
like, yeah, right.
Sir,
I'm
what's
a
your
sir.
name?
Yeah, sir, what's your name? It's a weird way to ask that.
Yeah. But
Well,
it's
and
like I have a
interest-
name tag on. It says Paul.
Yeah. And it's interesting and I'm sure this is fairly common for a lot of people to know this now, but a lot of names that we have today, a lot of last names or surnames,
Yeah.
are based off of what your profession was or what you were known for.
Right.
A long time back, medieval when they were making those.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So you have someone like, you have like John Smith, and it's like, he was a blacksmith.
Yeah, or
You
he
got-
came from a line of blacksmiths. Yeah.
You got a baker, and it's like, and that person was a shepherd. Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Then you got some weird ones where it's like some people, I actually have no clue what my last name means. I don't know if you know yours.
I don't.
Okay. Yeah, too long. But there's some where it's like, it actually was just like something that they did that was notable.
Okay.
And it's like, this person had a lot of anxiety. So
Yeah.
like that's what their last name means because they were known for that.
But that makes me wonder and ask the question I don't think I've ever thought about before, which is, did surnames originally come after the fact, or did they come at the beginning? Because like when you're born now, when people are born, their name, first name, last name, or first name, surname. Is there another word for first name?
I don't think so.
You're trying to make one up.
I was gonna make one up. It's too early to make one up.
But it's like so having that, did that come after or before? Because now when you're born, we put it in as you're being born.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're born and then you sign it.
Yeah. Well,
Not you, but your parents.
Yeah, I can't do it. Yeah. I haven't learned yet.
But it seems like
I feel like it came later
because it would be like John the blacksmith.
Yeah.
Not John Smith.
Well, because I feel like even before then, because we see this in scripture a lot in other ancient texts.
Yeah.
Where it was based off of the region that you were from, or based off of your parents.
Right, like Mary Magdalene.
So it's like yeah. So it's like, that's your surname. It's just where you're from.
Yeah, and
but it's not like an actual name.
Yeah, so we look at like Mary Magdalene and we're like, that's her last name.
Yeah.
It was
I'm not like Paul of Cleveland.
Right. Well, you're also not from Cleveland.
Well, from outside Cleveland, but I didn't want to get too specific.
Paul from outside Cleveland.
From Greater Cleveland. Stephen from Lakeland.
Yeah, that's true.
That works. But then I'm a transplant, so.
That's your middle name.
Yeah, that's my middle name.
Paul Transplant Outer Cleveland.
Now living in Lakeland.
Transplant from Outer Cleveland, Lakeland.
And that's probably, there was so much of that. They're probably like, your name's Smith.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like over time, it's just the fact that the quantity of people went up.
Yeah. Well, actually, the other thing that makes sense about that is because you think it would get confusing if you have like 15 Johns in one area.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they're all John, something. I can't think of funny names today.
Well, you also think about, like, in a previous episode, we talked about how the people in Nazareth looked at Jesus in the synagogue and they were like, that's Joseph's boy.
Yeah.
But the thing about that's funny is they weren't like, oh, that's Jesus' surname Christ.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that wasn't his last name.
Right.
Yeah.
But then also, like, they weren't like, that's, and the funny thing, that gets complicated, but they weren't like, that's Jesus Smith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because his dad is Joseph Smith.
Oh! that's the that would have been such a perfect.
I feel like we need that meme where just our mouths are,
expanding.
I hope you're also
that's
listening
so
to this
funny.
very early in the morning.
Yeah, because you're along with us for the ride.
But that would be
great.
great.
So I was gonna say, it makes sense though, because a lot of people at that time, when someone was like a blacksmith,
Yeah.
your kids were blacksmiths too, because
Yeah.
there was a family trade. So it makes sense. Like, oh, this one family does this one thing,
Yeah.
so that's just their name.
Yeah, and to be fair, it'd be like Joseph Carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Joseph, general contractor.
Plates buried in the ground finder.
Joseph Contractor.
Joseph Contractor.
Isn't
General
that just
Contractor.
Isn't that
You know what's so
general
strange?
contractor?
I actually just had a dream this last night that I was
You still
talking
think
to
it's nighttime?
someone. Yeah, I do. I was talking to someone in my dream. We were all like at this Bible study. We're like, was Jesus actually a carpenter, or was he a general contractor, or like a mason? Oh,
Or a mason.
oh, a stonemason.
Jesus' dad's name was Joseph Smith, and he was a mason.
Boom, 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 boom.
I was,
But I was like, why was I?
you just went bum 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 bum.
I know.
Bum 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 bum.
That's our song.
It's like you just like go.
I did this whole minute.
What song is that?
I have no clue.
Okay, in the comments.
Let us know. What
That's a
song that is.
Motown song.
But
for
I love
sure.
how, if anyone wonders, this is what I dream about at night too. So this is just who I am. I can't fight it.
And that's the theme song that's playing in his dreams.
Boom, 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 boom.
That's
But
wild.
you know what? So it's interesting and why I bring all this up.
Classic Paul getting us back on track.
Trying, and then I'm like, please find the track again. Is
Choo choo.
our martyr today. How many chugga chuggas do you do before the choo choo?
Good question. Chugga 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 chugga. That many?
4?
No, that was like at least 8. Chugga.
Oh, that was 8. Yeah.
Chugga 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 chugga. This is not good podcasting.
They're curious. They want to know. Well, okay. So in our
Someone will
martyr
count it.
today, with our martyr today,
Yeah.
something for
Simon.
me, for Simon, that I'm not Simon, for our martyr Simon, that I found interesting.
Paul Simon.
It starts off with surnamed Paul Simon.
Sorry.
It's a bridge over troubled water.
Yeah. This podcast is a bridge over troubled water.
I hope you're sitting in a room of silence, listening to us. But yeah, so it's like, okay, it said his surnamed Xylotes.
Right.
And it's like, well, what does that mean? That's his. Why would they just throw a surname in like that?
Well, and I think it's important to spell it too. Like,
Oh yeah,
was it Zeloh?
there's an H. I thought it
No,
a
that
T.
was in the pronunciation.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. I was like, what?
Here, let me pull it up instead of trying to remember.
Zelotes, right?
Sure. I honestly,
Sure.
you spelled it, and I didn't keep any of the letters in my brain.
Spell it again. Let us know if I got it right.
Zelotes.
Oh, I did get it right.
Okay. You started spelling it, and I forgot every letter after you said it.
You're like, sure.
I feel like I don't know.
Zebra logo B.
Yeah. That's the pronunciation. Zebra logo
Bees.
bees. Yeah, because I feel like people try and do that. Like even sometimes like my like someone will try around my kids to spell something instead of say it. And they start spelling it. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. I have to like spell it back to myself when people do that to me.
Well, I have to think so hard.
Yeah, because I'm like, I gotta hold on to every letter you're saying.
But it's not like because I'm like low intelligence. It's because we
For
don't.
me, that's why.
But we don't talk to each other by spelling words.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, I don't. What? This is a different language.
There's like people with dogs. They're like, you want to go out for an WALK? And I was like, I'm just as lost as your dog right now.
I know. And the truth is the dog
And
can
I
already
get
read
just
your
excited.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dog already through telepathy knows what you're thinking.
And I'm like, hold on. Do you have a napkin nearby?
So your dog's response to that is to look at you, or your friend's dog's response to that is to look at Paul and go, he doesn't know what.
Like, come
what
on. Come on.
Paul, help! Let me help you.
Let me help you. But so Xylotes. Let us know, what is that all about?
Zelotes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Xylotes. I spelled it and still didn't know what I spelled. I think because the pronunciation is different letters. That's what's in my head.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah. So Xylotes. So that's his surname or his last name or what he was known by.
Yeah.
which is different than your last name.
And when you find out what this word is, if you haven't guessed by now,
Yeah.
then it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a Greek word that basically like is synonymous with zealot.
Yeah.
And a zealot is a passionate person.
Someone burning with zeal, I think was the...
Yeah, somebody burning
which is
with
a little
zeal.
bit cheating.
It is kind of.
Define a word by a shorter version of its word.
I know, or spelling it slightly different. Yeah, it says emulator, zealous admirer, or follower.
And I asked you this, and people in the comments might be able to...
Or one
See,
burning
sure.
with zeal. Yeah, it's like...
he was known as Simon the Zealot.
He was.
Yeah.
So even
which is funny, it's like, oh, that's... because that's what his name is.
Well, even in Matthew 10:4, it says
10:4.
Simon the Zealot. 10:4? It says Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot who betrayed him.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's
Could you
like...
imagine your lesson being betrayer?
Well, imagine that's like your verse to memorize for the week. Everybody memorize Matthew 10:4. I'll say it with you. Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot who betrayed him. It's an easy one.
Not bad. Just imagining the betrayer being your
Well,
yeah,
so
I'm John Betrayer.
So that's the thing. Like Iscariot also means that. It means...
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's not his last name. That's his surname.
It is now.
But the surname is, in these cases...
a last name.
Well, it becomes a last name, but it was clearly something that was given to him after.
Yeah.
Because like when we talked about
Something
names,
to indicate him.
you talk about like Jacob.
Yeah.
And Jacob, he gets his name at birth, but he gets it because of what he's doing.
Yeah.
Which is holding on to his brother's heel.
Yeah.
And then his name changes later to Israel, one who wrestles with God, because
he was wrestling.
He wrestled with God. So like the name comes after the action.
Yeah.
In those instances, even though one does come at birth, it still comes after the action. So it's kind of interesting because that's how we have this here. So
if you're an expecting parent, don't come up with kids' names yet.
But I also
wait until after they come out.
Like I haven't looked at this, but I wondered.
Like this is my son, nose picker.
But I do hear stories of that like
really?
people will be like this child is this is their name.
Yeah.
And then when they come out, they just decide to name them something different. I've heard that many times.
That happened to my younger siblings. My parents came up with names for them, and then like a month later, they're like, "These names aren't them."
Like after they were born?
Yeah.
A month after?
Yeah, or it might have been a couple weeks, but they forgot to sign the paper, so it never became official. And so they had to go back in, and it was like, oh, this is easy.
Oh, that's so weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so they were, for a month or two, they were calling them something else.
Yeah.
And neglecting their paperwork.
Isn't that crazy? An American way.
Ohioan way.
Ohioan way. Like, we'll get
Were they in
around to
Ohio
it.
at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Greater Cleveland area. But yeah, so even that, like Iscariot means a person who betrays another.
That's interesting.
A traitor.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like Iscariot's not his last name. It is his surname, which is a little different, right?
Is it?
I think so.
Well, I think it's one of those that makes sense because it's basically just a qualifier to the person's first name.
Right.
Which is something they're known for. It's like, we'll give them another thing that they're known for.
Right.
And I think it's kind of interesting for me when I think about that. And this is total Paul speculation. But you look at how big these kingdoms have gotten, where before it's like, oh, everyone's kind of within their own town.
Sure.
But now with roadways and just people being more connected to each other. I mean, the other thing, it's funny, it's like, for me at least, this was like, oh, whoa, like that makes sense. Like people had vacations and traveled back in that time too.
Right.
It obviously looked a little bit different. But like the Romans were known for going on holidays and traveling to different countries.
Yeah, they kind of started that in the modern world.
Yeah. Which is like, it's a weird idea to think about that.
Leisure.
We think like, oh, only we do that.
Right.
But it's like, oh no, people have been doing this for a long time. And with how accessible things had become, it makes sense.
That's why we think about the Romans all the time.
Yeah. I love the Holy Roman Empire.
But yeah, so a surname...
So it makes sense where it's like this idea of a surname is a response to being more people in an area.
Right.
When it's like, we've never had this problem before, but now we have to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah. So like a definition would be basically a last name, synonymous with family name and last name. But the origins often have roots in occupations, places, and names. And then in some cultures, surnames are placed at the beginning of a person's name, while in others they're at the end. So like, I think in some ways we've evolved into a last name is just something that you kind of inherit through your family, but or you take it on, because that is something like I feel like not until I was older did I realize like, oh, I actually can just go change my names.
Yeah.
Like any of them.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, like the same way I can change my address.
Yeah.
Except that like I do have to like I can't just change.
Unlike
I have to, like,
people
go
know
live
how
there.
you've got to go do some paperwork.
That's true. But I also have to like go and live there.
Yeah.
I can't just change my
address.
address.
Well, you can just
just
won't
make
stay
it up.
that way for a long time.
I guess you could do like a PO box or something.
That's true.
But there has to be like some, I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So Matthew 10:4, Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. That's your verse for the week.
That's your verse for the There will be a quiz.
So that is interesting because then Simon, whose surname is Zelotes, is interesting because it still doesn't really answer the question. Did it come before or after? Like, is it something that he was known by, or was his family known as zealots? Was he from a family of zealots?
Which is kind of interesting. Or was he the first one and it kind of came that?
But if you think about historically in that area, you just came through like 400 years of Jewish zealots.
That's
like
true.
The Maccabee family. Like there's all these things happening in those 400 years leading up to the birth of Jesus that I could see him coming from a family of zealots.
Yeah, that's actually really cool.
But also known as a zealot.
Yeah.
So like all those things could be true.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
and especially
cool.
as a martyr, all of the disciples that were martyred could be called zealots.
Yeah.
However, a zealot in that time would have been more of what the Jewish people told the Romans they should be afraid of, which is they're going to overthrow your government now.
Yeah.
And that's not what they were doing.
Mm-mm.
They were saying, no, we're going to overthrow your government now on the back end, the spiritual side.
Yeah. That's the part we care about.
Yeah. They're going to fight with not flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And the way they showed that was being martyred and going like, hey, the flesh and blood, we don't care about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing, we've talked about this a few times too, where it's like how much that didn't matter to them.
Yeah.
And as far as like crucifixion was the absolute worst possible way to die for a human.
Yeah.
And I think even today it's still considered one of the most horrible ways of dying.
And it was humiliating.
It was, yeah.
Because it was a false Messiah's death.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in the last episode. So forgive me, but I'm going to repeat it.
Or a failed zealot's death. It could be both.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Where it's like when we look at the problem that the people at that time had with Jesus versus our problem with him, I'm pretty sure I talked about this in the last episode, is for them, they're like, why would you want to worship a crucified God?
Right.
And for us, we're like, why would we believe in someone we think is lying?
Yeah, true.
And they're like, no, he was humiliated. Why would you want to follow that?
Yeah.
And for them, it's like, well, so they also, Simon was crucified as well.
Yeah.
And that's a word that keeps getting used for a lot of these martyrs' deaths.
Yeah.
And it's like, it becomes just kind of like, yep, and he was crucified. It's like, no, this is a horrible death.
Right.
That a lot of them went through.
Yeah. But it also is like an imitation element.
Yeah.
It also kind of gives historical validity to the time frame where it was under the Roman rule. It was within this specific time frame. The thing that's tough about that is, Simon, because it says that later it was probably in the Britain area where you were studying myths.
Like, and this is where Simon the Zealot.
Yeah. So if
Simon Zelotes.
if he's crucified in 74 AD, then he lived past seeing Jerusalem fall.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is also an interesting thing.
I do want us to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
But not now.
No.
So your verse for today, Matthew 10:4.
Matthew 10:4.
Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. 3, 2, 1. All right. Music time. Music in the morning. Music in the morning with Stephen and Paul.
Music.
Music.
Which is, it's funny because it's like an early Saturday morning.
How many M's do you say before you say music?
Music. And then I start to stutter it.
Music.
Do you ever do where you like do like a joke stutter, but then you actually start to stutter and you can't escape it?
You know, Paul, I can't say that I've ever done that.
Oh, okay. Well, I've definitely done that.
Sorry.
And I'm
we
like,
relate
did
on
I
most
give
things.
myself a stutter?
Yes, that is what happened.
Yes. I'm like, I can't find the exit.
It's because you were counting and you went past your count.
It's true.
And you're like, oh no.
Uh-oh.
How do I get off this interstate? All right. So I feel like this is going to just become a classic fashion.
Yeah.
Paul's like, do you have something? I'm like, yeah, I have something. Do you have something? No, I don't have anything. Okay. Well, I have something, but I don't want to play. I don't want to play anything.
You play.
So you play.
Yeah.
And I also just have a bunch of lyrics
Yeah.
that like kind of rhyme.
I love it.
So, yeah.
Which
but-
is kind of fun because it's like, we don't know what each other's gonna do.
Nope. So this will be like full reaction.
Yeah.
But like I'm also not coming up with words. I'm just gonna come up with how they land in your
Yeah, that's fair.
how you're playing.
And I don't even know what I'm gonna play yet.
That's great. But we're gonna keep it chill and
Yeah.
smooth. Yeah. So don't speed it up.
No, I'll try not to.
And let's leave some of those classic Paul turnarounds out.
It's just me experimenting, but it never works.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like continuing writing. Nah.
Too much.
Who's the banana pancakes guy?
Oh, Jack Johnson?
Yeah, let's not go Jack Johnson.
Make him a banana.
It's like
Do something here.
I feel like that's
Make a
so
banana
close.
pancake.
That's the vibe you're feeling.
It is the vibe.
No, because I don't want to like lean into like
don't
an
wanna
island accent.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears. Go very Ohio acoustic,
Ohio acoustic.
not worship acoustic.
I'll just go Paul acoustic.
Okay,
We'll make it minor. You do the same thing, but just
I'm good with that.
make it a minor. Actually, I have no idea. I feel like that's still worshipy.
Yeah, it's strumming is like
Yeah, when you're strumming, it's worship music.
it is. I can get with this.
Okay.
You got to figure out where you're gonna land though, because you're doing a setup right now.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't like that.
All right, so do some like looping, like something that's like a 3 or 4 chord loop.
I'll just walk it up.
This is like what producers do in the studio without a live person. I'm just doing it with Paul. Paul is my computer.
I am the computer. I am robot.
Resolve there. So like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then do a 4th. Back to the, 1, do that. I might try and just keep this low.
Yeah, do it.
Although I do always like get into it and then surprise octave jump.
You can't help yourself. And I'll be like, it's time. It's turnaround time.
It's turnaround time. All right, here we go. Geography, archaeology, ancient beasts and other scary fiends. Jesus came and overcame the grave. He preached to the sons of God in Tartarus, broke through the barriers, defeated death. Resurrection, life, disciples spread. Holy Spirit rest upon their heads, and then they died because of the one they love, who first loved them. Jesus Christ, the risen Lamb, on Martyr's Row. We honor those who came before on Martyr's Row. We honor those who came before. We honor those who came before. Constantine ruined everything. Augustine, supernatural beings. Apollyon in the bottomless pit. Enoch won, angels threw a fit. Throne in Pergamum, golden cherubim. Don't touch the tree, just be who you were meant to be. Martyrs Row. We honor those who came before on Martyrs Row. On Martyrs Row. Martyrs Row. We honor those who came before on Martyrs Row. On Martyrs Row. 'Cause Constantine ruined everything. Augustine, supernatural beings. Apollyon in the bottomless pit. On Martyrs Row. Honor those who came before. On Martyrs Row. On Martyrs Row. 3, 2, 1. Paul, I have a fun one for you today.
Oh boy!
Since we're recording this in the morning,
Yeah.
and cereal is a great way to start the day.
Ah, so true. Did I ever tell you I was a cereal enthusiast for a long time?
Like, you
Not
were
professionally.
consistently enthusiastic?
Yeah. It was my brother and I moved into our first apartment together,
Okay.
and it was our first time that we were like, we can buy whatever we want.
And so you did like cereal testing?
We just bought cereal.
That's funny.
At one point, my brother had this,
Cereal
you know, like
only.
those like dome lights.
Yeah.
Like he took one of those, cleaned it, and filled it with cereal.
Gosh.
It was a lot of cereal.
Wow. Just, that's a good way to waste a whole day.
Yeah, and then we realized, oh, this is why we need to eat other things,
Oh, this is why our mom did what she did.
because this will kill us. Yeah. But anyway, cereal.
It's funny though, because my older brother, like I did as well, but we both moved out when we were 18. And at some point moved back in with our parents, and then, but he's 8 years older than me.
That's
Anyways,
the most punk rock thing you can do.
I know. It's a very Florida thing. I guess a Midwest thing too.
I don't need you, mom and dad. Hey, mom and dad.
Can I come back and live with you?
Just for a minute.
It wasn't long, but yeah, no. So I went to his first apartment, and I opened the pantry, and it was just floor to ceiling in the pantry, Hungry Howie's boxes. But there was no pizza in them.
It was empty.
Yeah, it's just empty boxes.
Just his trophies.
But the truth is like when you live in an apartment, like taking a box like that, you can't, like, you don't want to shove those into the trash can,
Yeah.
or trash bag, because it takes the whole trash bag.
And you're like, I'm not going to bring just one to the
No.
dumpster. Yeah.
So then eventually you bring none of them, and they just fill up an entire pantry.
I love
There's
it.
literally nothing else in the pantry. It was just
Hungry
floor to
Howie's.
ceiling Hungry Howie's boxes. Like, well, I know what kind of pizza you like, or what's the cheapest.
You're right. That's the answer.
Yeah, that's true. Or both, I guess. But Paul, I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
We've been talking a lot about Britain today.
Have we?
I was about to genuinely answer you.
I love that.
Yeah, our martyr today, Simon.
Yeah.
The zealot.
Simon Zelotes.
Zelotes. He was crucified in Britain.
Yeah.
According to
John
Fox. I was about to say John Hancock. Not John Hancock. Wasn't he a founding father?
Yeah. Every time I hear that name, I think of Tommy Boy.
Oh, okay.
When he takes the test, he's like, John Hancock. It's Herbie Hancock.
Children, don't watch that movie.
Don't.
But yeah, so Britain, and then you went to Britain.
Yeah.
And I keep saying Britain, but like...
Because it makes it sound more like regal.
I know.
Yeah.
So I feel like in light of that, because it's the morning, and I do love cereal, I feel like I need to ask this question in a British accent.
Okay, please.
But like a British accent of a British person who doesn't exist.
So just an American British accent.
An American British accent of a person who's trying to write a film about cereal being made in Britain.
Okay.
Are you guys with me?
Yes.
I said, are you guys? Like there's a bunch of people here.
But I can't hear you.
Are you ready, kids? Okay, so my question, Paul. What is the myth of the rainbow?
What I love about that is because it's a Lucky Charms reference.
I know, it is.
Which is Irish.
And that's the accent I was doing.
And then our gateway to it.
We're just trying to make a bunch of British people upset.
Colonizing.
Yeah. Well,
that's great.
You know, St. Patrick's Day. That's a thing.
That is a thing.
Yeah, that happens all around the world.
It's a real thing.
So, Paul, what's the myth of the rainbow?
Well, gather round.
Gather round.
Now, this isn't a fairy tale.
Yeah. No, this is myth.
This is myth.
Which is different. If
Very
you don't believe
different.
me, go back 2 episodes.
2 episodes. This is our myth series.
Yeah.
Which might just be what the podcast is.
Which is funny because I think I made a joke about it, us doing like a sermon series about myths, when it's like, this is a 50-part series on
Yeah.
and it's just becoming that.
Yeah. Whoops.
This was supposed to be 1 episode.
Well.
And then it was supposed to be 2 episodes. Then it was supposed to be a trilogy. And then we're like, no.
It's probably at least 2 more.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which hopefully you're here for, because we are.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack.
Well, and I think one of the main like residuals, or like something that is happening because of the way we're approaching the podcast, is like it's addressing all of the things that are exterior, a little bit to the biblical conversation.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like that's what I always did, and that's what like people always asked questions, or I feel like I was part of conversations that were like, okay, but what about this? Like, consider this, which is the philosophical question.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's the biblical narrative, here's the center line, but what do we do with this over here?
Yeah.
What do we do with this over here? How do we bring it back to the middle line? How does everything push against, you know, and honestly make and bolster up and build up the true myth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for so it's funny, and it's funny I'm saying this far into the recording as well, or into our episodes.
This is funny. I'm already laughing.
That's good. Hysterical. Well, it's like, so this is episode 16?
I think so. We keep saying that. So regardless, this has to be 16.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
We'll see.
I like it better if we're wrong.
As we're like pushing it out, it's like, oh wait, this was supposed to be 16.
Oh no.
So if this is 16B, it's because we forgot.
We should do that. There's no 17. It's just 16B.
Or no, 16 is just 16B.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
This is like 15, 16B, 17. People will be like, where's 16A?
There's an asterisk on the end of it.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. Did it ever really exist?
It was pre this.
But so for the podcast, it's funny because it's called Martyr's Row.
Right.
And it's funny because we don't spend a ton of time talking about martyrs.
Sometimes.
We do sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's like, well, in my head, it was very clear.
That's what we were doing.
Like, know why we were doing that.
Oh,
And it's
Oh,
for
I
a lot of
see.
people it hasn't. So I'm like, let me just make it clear here, at least the way I see it.
yeah.
Because you might have a different approach to it as well.
I don't think we've talked about this.
I don't think we have.
I like that.
And it's for me, it's like, well, I think it's kind of like the focus for all of us is like, well, let's look at a martyr, and we start that by talking about one.
And by all of us, you mean all of us here at Martyr's Row?
All of us here at Martyr's Row. Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, okay, so let's talk about that and see the zeal they had for their faith,
Yeah.
and the burning passion that they had to unwaveringly
Yeah.
stand next to it,
Yeah.
or stand by their faith. And so let's center ourselves first by looking at that.
Right.
And then now let's bring up the questions and the frameworks that can cause us to falter or fail. And it's like, no, let's
Okay.
realign so that way we can stand against our faith in the same way.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
Yeah.
And it's made so much sense to me.
Yeah. So like as a whole, each podcast is somewhat a practice in apologetics.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's how I like to view it.
Yeah.
And also because a lot of these questions that we talk about, I hear this often
Mm-hmm.
where from a lot of Christians where they're like, oh, like the idea of aliens or the idea of the flood, like, or some kind of evolutionary debate, some kind of
Right.
scientific, it's like that
Age of the earth and
that
all,
shakes
yeah.
my faith.
Sure.
And it's like, why? That shouldn't.
Right.
Like, regardless of, the alien ones, like if there are aliens or there aren't aliens, if the Book of Enoch is true or it's not true,
Yeah.
it's like that really shouldn't shake your faith at all
No.
if we have a right framework of what the Bible says.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that's why these questions that we talk about are so important.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, let's not just say, I don't know, and just ignore it.
Yeah.
And just go right back to reading the Bible, ignoring the parts that are weird.
Yeah.
It's like, no, let's actually see how it fits in, if it fits in, and where it fits.
Yeah, and I think that the weird things and the unusual things are the most interesting things.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a mistake for us to decide that the Bible is just going to be the simple, boring things.
Yeah.
And all the weird things, we'll leave that up to people writing books and movies and like all the other stuff that's happening in the world. Because then as a Christian, you don't really have a ton of framework for things that are happening in the world that are weird and strange.
Yeah.
You just kind of go that doesn't really exist until you encounter it, and then you don't have a framework for it.
Yeah.
Because you've ignored it in the Bible. And most of that stuff is in there. So like
absolutely.
the Bible actually gives us framework for all the weird and scary things that we can encounter in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It already gives us the framework for it.
Yeah.
But if we shy away from it in our study,
we have to figure it out again ourselves.
yeah, it can shake our faith because we don't realize it's there. Right? So like that is
absolutely.
That is kind of a key point. Yeah. So the myth of the rainbow.
The myth of the rainbow.
What is the myth of the rainbow? What is the myth of the... That's like the key. That's like the key to the Irish accent. Start as high as you can, then go down.
Well,
Hello there. Hello there.
and if anyone wonders, ethnically, I am a little bit Irish.
Let's not talk
Are
about
you?
ethics.
Ethics. Ethnic, isn't it what I said?
It is. I was just making a joke.
Well, actually, speaking of ethics,
Okay.
that leads into the myth of the rainbow.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Spit take. Oh boy. Mickey Mouse. I was like, what voice is that?
Oh yeah. If I did it better, you'd pick it up.
I think I did it pretty good in my head.
I think so. You nailed it.
Oh boy. You have to like break up in the middle of it.
Just think about corporate greed as you do it. It comes out perfectly.
That's a question we should answer. Was Mickey Mouse a Freemason?
They'll never sponsor us.
I don't know if I want to be sponsored by Disney.
I don't think I do either.
Although we don't want them against us, I guess.
No. Well, Martyr's Row.
Welcome to Martyr's Row, where Disney is against us. That also includes...
That would be such a flex.
It's like Comcast, ESPN. Is Comcast still a thing?
Probably.
Isn't that like the conglomerate?
It's
like the...
It's like a big thing now.
Yeah. I haven't heard that name in a while.
That's
I think
so
they're trying
funny.
to stop talking about that.
Yeah.
The myth of the rainbow.
Well, so it's funny. It's like, okay, so where did the rainbow come from? And
I
what
don't
does
know,
it
Paul.
represent?
Who?
Who? What? Where?
Why?
How?
Rainbow?
Rainbow.
Rainbow is fun to say.
And it's interesting. So when we look at like the biblical account,
Taste the rainbow.
taste it. I actually don't know
That's Skittles.
off the top of my head if any other culture has a rainbow myth.
Skittles, we're ready for you to sponsor us.
I'll take a Skittles sponsorship.
We will eat Skittles every episode. In fact, we'll just put like a dispenser
The official
right here.
candy of
Yeah.
Martyr's Row is Skittles.
Every time we say rainbow, we have to eat one. Martyr's
I would
Row.
say it a lot.
Martyr's Row officially sponsored by Skittles.
And now we need a dentist.
Oh yeah, good point. We can make that local.
That'd be sweet.
That can be a regional
Colgate,
spot.
maybe.
Colgate.
I'm an Arm & Hammer guy.
Okay. What is this, 1950?
Yeah. Yeah.
Outer Cleveland area?
The greater Cleveland.
So rainbows. What, when, where, why?
Yeah, so I don't actually know if another culture has like a rainbow myth
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's something I didn't look into that at all.
Good. I'm glad I asked that question.
Which
then.
is more fun.
Yeah.
But I do know the biblical account,
Okay.
which most of us hopefully do. And we look at like, okay, so what does it represent? And what's interesting is when we look at like how a rainbow is, like how it happens,
Yeah.
it takes some rain.
It does.
And it's funny because according to the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
it had never rained up into the flood.
Yeah.
And so there had been no rainbow,
Yeah.
which is a weird idea.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's like, that's, again, going back to the weird stuff, like that's weird.
Yeah. How do crops grow?
Yeah. And it's like, do they just out here watering every blade of grass?
With what? Did they have water
Yeah.
hoses?
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
that's a weird idea.
Yeah. But I guess a lot of ancient cultures, they would use like freshwater springs and next to
and
rivers.
that's usually where
then
they were
would-
nearby
They would feed it into the crops. Yeah.
for like irrigation and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Which like, okay, that makes sense.
It does.
And it would also make sense because, I mean, we see in like the garden
Mm-hmm.
where there was a mist that watered all the plants and everything.
Yeah.
But we also know it's like, yeah, we were placed here as gardeners originally to
Yeah.
take care of the earth.
Right.
And it's like, well, it would make sense that they would irrigate and take care of things that way because that's one of the sole reasons that we were here.
Yeah. And there's potentially less desert area
Yeah.
originally. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're next to four rivers,
Yeah. Not the barbecue place.
not the barbecue, but
That's actually where they got their name, by the way.
oh, really?
Yeah, it's a biblical reference.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Bold
Four
claim.
Rivers sponsor us.
Bold claim.
I know.
But we look at it, it's like, okay, so the rainbow came after the flood.
Right.
And God said, that's a sign, a promise to you that I will never flood the whole earth again.
Right. Just some of it.
Just some of it. Because, yeah.
But it is interesting, though, because when you say that, like rain it's almost this, it's like this reminder. In some ways, it's a little bit of it's not really a threat because you have a rainbow that comes after,
Yeah.
but it is a little bit of a reminder that like once there was a flood,
Right.
but don't worry, the rain's going to stop.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating as well because that it's, again, that term whole world.
Yeah.
And this is not the direction that we're headed with it. But but when you think about that, it's like, okay, is it when it talks about whole world, is it talking about geographically the whole world
Right.
or all the people within it? Because we see such a literary device that's used often
Mhm.
is the world refers to the people that aren't Christians or the people that aren't Israelites.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, that's actually a really interesting idea then if we're going to attach that wordplay to it as well.
Yeah.
And so when we see this, like, so when God says, well, we see there are floods that
Right.
happen, but it doesn't take out the whole world, all the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like tsunamis and like
Yeah.
different cataclysms that are still actively happening.
Right.
But it's not a whole world or even a whole culture
Yeah.
or a whole group of people being wiped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where it's an interesting question as well, because in this, we've been talking about the setup is like, what are the myths that we see across cultures? And so if like myths happen, or sorry, myths do happen everywhere.
Myths happen.
But myths happen. That's a shirt. Myth happened.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so floods happen
Right.
pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
But why do we see flood myths, like massive flood myths across all cultures?
Yeah, in ancient cultures.
It's like, well, that brings up an interesting idea, right?
Yeah, because part of the myth conversation that we're having is, where is there a true story, a true through line?
Yeah.
And if that is true, typically what happens is there are a bunch of other pieces of evidence that point to the truth of that story or of that claim. So the other pieces of evidence, when you're looking at ancient texts and storylines, the best way to find other evidence for those claims is to look across other ancient stories around the same time and figure out if everybody else is also saying a similar thing.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, is like we do see that.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the internet.
Right.
They don't have phones that we know of.
Yeah. And it... True that.
That's definitely a different episode.
That is.
Ancient ways of communication.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Through frequency and sound transfer.
The pyramids. Oh. Did I say it? But so and
they do exist.
For us, they do exist.
Yeah.
They are a real thing. You can see them.
The pyramids, yeah.
Or can you?
Oh. Or have you seen the real ones? Or what's underneath?
Dun, 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 dun. I do every song except the one.
Bum, bum, bum. There we go.
Ba-da-bum, bum, bum. Bum, ba-dum, bum. We're going to that. That'd be on theme for today.
Ancient myths.
I just lost myself in there.
I know. Paul's losing himself.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's like we can expect to see floods, ancient cultures experiencing floods.
Yeah. So if there's a flood in the
same
Bible,
details in their stories,
right?
That's where it's like eyebrow raising.
Did that feel good?
No.
It's like when you like scratch your head. You're like, oh.
It's too. I can't. My eyebrows don't work independently this morning.
That's awesome. So other flood myths.
Yes. So I want to read you some.
Okay.
But yes, I'm gonna read you some.
Okay.
And I want you to sit back and enjoy the myths.
Okay. I wish I did have a recliner this morning.
That actually would be nice. We'd fall asleep
this
so
morning.
Fast.
We would. Just the end of we just slowly fall asleep. In the last 15 minutes,
then we
just
wake
us
up.
asleep.
Like, anyway.
See you next time.
See you next time. 3, 2.
We fall asleep to it.
So the biblical flood.
Yeah, let's start there.
Which is Noah.
Yes.
Avi.
Right. Well, Noah didn't start the flood.
No, he didn't, but he was in it.
He didn't start the flood.
But he was riding it through on a wooden ark.
That should have been our song.
That would have been good. That's good. So God sends a flood due to wickedness.
Okay.
Noah builds an ark, instructed by God. Ark rests in the mountains of Ararat, and then Noah sends birds to find dry land.
And
that's kind of our bullet point. Yes.
Where is that?
Actually, is that in... I actually don't know.
Turkey.
Northern
Turkey.
Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a whole thing with mountains of Ararat where the ark landed.
Yeah.
Right?
Because haven't they supposedly found its resting place? And, like, the outline of the ark?
Supposedly, yeah. Yeah. But I haven't seen it.
No. I've seen a picture.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at that outline.
And I've seen many videos, but
yeah,
I haven't been there.
Well, I love how there are people like, it proves the flood. It's like, no, it doesn't prove.
No, it proves that a boat was built.
Yeah.
And someone left it.
A big boat that was just there.
Yeah. But it is interesting, though, when you look at that. And like, what's weird to me about that type of thing is how much stuff is actually probably in existence and ready for us to find that proves some of these ancient myths true. That we just haven't found yet.
Yeah.
Or people have found them and hid them, or they found them, didn't tell anybody about it, or didn't know what it was.
Which is another episode for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
even think about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
Like, those are found by shepherds.
Yeah. And they've been hidden for a long time, for centuries.
And literally the guy was like, they took some of the scrolls and they just sold them to a market.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, wait, this is where did you get this from?
This is significant. Yeah.
This is a massive finding.
I love
Archaeological
how that's what we
finding.
all hope would happen when we go into like a pawn shop.
I know.
Like
you
I
would
just
find-
found this in my attic.
I
Like, this
know.
is a Monet. Like, how did you have this?
Here's $1 billion.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. But no, mountains of Ararat. So, not Göbekli Tepe, but is it Tahari Tepe?
Is that there?
It's in northern Turkey.
Oh, that's right. Because it's very close.
It is.
It's like
It's close enough that you
It's
could
only
travel to it.
like 20 miles away or something like that.
Yeah, it's something pretty close.
yeah.
Which is interesting because there's a whole conversation.
That's
There's a whole conversation about one of the sons of Ham
yeah.
that potentially goes there and finds ancient knowledge.
Yes, which takes us back to our boy Enoch too.
It does. Yeah, so
Both
that's
Enochs,
that's a whole
actually.
other thing. But the location of it is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we do find I want to say Tahari, but yeah, so what are the points of the biblical flood? And I want to find that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I kind of set it up with that too, so we can kind of see these are the main themes of these myths I'm kind of pulling out, because obviously I can't write every single one of them out.
Right.
That would be a very long time. But kind of our main theme points from this is we have God sending a flood due to wickedness. Instructed by God, Noah then builds an ark, and then the ark rests in the mountains of Ararat, and then he sends out a bird to find dry land after the flood has subsided.
Right.
So those are kind of like our theme markers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's hold on to those themes, and then let's use that and go to our next one.
Wait.
But before we do, I forgot for a second. I was like, let's just carry this.
It is. So it is. Oh yeah. It is Göbekli Tepe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey. Yeah. It's about 500 kilometers south of Mount Ararat.
What's that in
I don't know.
in freedom terms?
In freedom terms. In American.
In American.
What is that in American? It says it takes about 157 hours to walk there.
Yeah, that's when you got nothing else going on.
That's significant. Yeah. It's in the south region. But yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
That's fascinating.
Because Göbekli Tepe, I feel like there's one closer than that. I'm not going to look that up. You guys can look that
it's
up.
another episode. We'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, we need to. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that is that's kind of a modern looking back. Like I'm
Mhm.
guessing that's not going to be in one of your list at all.
Believe it or not, no.
But Göbekli Tepe is it's a site that they believed was in existence around 12,000 years ago,
Yeah.
which is interesting
Very
because
interesting.
it kind of hints to a global cataclysm where
Yeah.
Göbekli Tepe they believe was buried.
Yeah. But intentionally buried.
Intentionally buried.
Yeah.
And it would have been buried before the flood
Right.
or a global cataclysm that
Yeah.
is shown in the sediment in the
Yeah.
ground above it and through it. So that is kind of interesting when we talk about like a flood.
Yeah.
And even like not even getting into like global flood or local flood, because even if it is a local flood, that's still in
Still
Turkey.
pretty close.
Yeah. So it's interesting that it's all in that region.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Turkey before in significance to Mesopotamia and Abraham.
Yeah.
So like Israel kind of, in a lot of ways, a lot of things come out of Turkey,
Right.
modern day Turkey.
I mean, we're talking about the Fertile Crescent. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like Like, we need to do a whole episode on the significance of Turkey itself.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think in the biblical narrative, we just kind of say that the landmass of Israel, modern Israel, is like the most important thing. And the truth is like, it is the land, is the promised land. It's the land flowing with milk and honey. But it seems to not necessarily be the starting point, but instead of the landing point.
Yeah.
So then if there is a starting point, it sounds like it's Turkey.
Yeah, or at least a restarting point.
That's true.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
but let's
some other myths.
Let's carry this through.
Let's look around the world at other flood myths.
Let's see what else people have to say for us. So I'm actually going to jump.
And we're not going to put a time on it.
No.
Right? Like a time frame on the flood.
These are just...
That's a different episode.
That's a very different episode. Just the timeline of history in general is an episode in and of itself.
That's true.
But I'm actually going to jump over here to the Greeks.
Okay, Greeks. Hey, Greeks.
And this is... Hey, Greeks.
Paul, I think you're more tired in the morning than at night.
I think it's because I'm looking at this and like, I don't know how to say this word. Deucalion and Pyrrha.
Greek words are hard.
We're going to go with that.
I'm here for it.
Like Deucalion. And so in this one, Zeus sends a flood due to wickedness.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Okay.
Deucalion and Pyrrha, warned by Prometheus, survive in a chest. They land on Mount Parnassus and throw rocks that turn into people.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
That's an impressive rock throw.
I know. So they're like, we need some people. Let's just throw some rocks.
What mountain is it?
It is Mount Parnassus. Parnassus.
Yeah, keep talking about that. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see the location of it because I actually haven't looked into that. But it's interesting. So even when we compare these two, it's like, so what's the reason for the flood? Well, it's actually the same reason. There's wickedness on the earth, and the god in the story is like, I don't like that. Let's fix this.
Yeah.
But then we have someone, in this case, it's actually in the Greek one, it's a separate individual.
Okay.
Prometheus, who's gotten in trouble a lot by giving like humans fire and stuff.
Yeah.
He's just perpetually in trouble with the gods. But he actually tells these two individuals about it.
It's Central Greece.
Okay, which would make sense that it's in their region.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, because everything centers around whatever culture it's in.
Yeah, like Delphi. It says that Zeus sent 2 eagles to find the center of the earth.
Dang. And that's it.
And they say that, that Central Greece is the center of the earth, which is another funny thing because...
Just funny because we know it's America.
What? We know it's Washington, D.C. No, but you think about it like...
I mean, everyone mad there for a second.
But like central, like the center of the earth, and that mountain is in the center of Greece.
Yeah.
So like it's the center of their world.
Yeah, that's
not necessarily the world.
Yeah, but their world it is.
In their world, that's the center.
Which
goes back to the
makes
myths.
a lot of sense. Even when we go back to Deuteronomy 32, which we've referenced a lot in this.
Yeah.
It would make sense that, oh no, it's all about this right here.
Right.
And right now, because that's about the God who's over them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
So that's really interesting. So now I want to jump to the Norse.
Okay.
We're staying
because we know Zeus. I mean, that's a pretty popular.
Yeah.
And mostly from Hercules.
Yeah. I think you mean Huncules.
Huncules?
You remember that from the cartoon?
Yeah. Not where I thought you were going.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the Norse. Even weirder names to say.
I'm here for that.
Bergelmir and Wymir's.
Okay.
Blood.
Blood? That's part of their name? Or it's their blood?
That's kind of like... it's Wymir's blood.
Okay.
So the world is flooded with the blood of the slain giant.
Yikes.
Which we talked about in the creation myth, where
we did.
Not only was everything created from his body,
it was also flooded.
It was flooded with his blood.
Yeah, but that's kind of cool.
It's kind of gross.
No, I mean like,
but this guy is really
like the
really
earth
big.
Is covered in the blood.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the one who created it, which is interesting.
Yeah, which is like,
or what it's created from.
Biblically, we would see that as a cleansing.
Yes.
That like the blood the blood of God,
covered.
yeah, is cleansing the earth,
Yeah.
right, and making way for what is to come.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring out of it.
Yeah.
For that
You're like, you shouldn't, but that's
like,
an
no,
interesting
that's
point.
very interesting. And then only Bergelmir and his wife survive in a wooden box.
So both of those are wooden boxes.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because what's an ark?
Yeah.
A wooden box.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's interesting even that in this one they're like, oh, him and his wife survive. But it's strange that they say only him and his wife.
Yeah, so it's just one pair.
Yeah, and this
Yeah.
is where it then jumps kind of to the Greek, because in this one it's like it's only these two people as well that survive.
Yeah.
And they create people by throwing rocks. But in this one,
They create
two
people by
survivors,
throwing rocks.
they repopulate the frost giants. They're just like, yeah, let's make some frost giants now. That's one thing I find interesting about the Norse in a lot of their mythology is it revolves heavily around giants.
Yeah. That makes
which
sense.
is a fascinating idea.
Well, the snow is deep up there.
Yes. And there's like,
You
yeah.
have to be tall to walk around.
Well, it's like because they're there for their might, and they're tall people there too. So like,
Yeah.
we need bigger people.
Yeah, true. That's a good point.
Yeah, which
Like
is,
the gods need to be bigger than us.
yeah, because they're huge.
Yeah. Well, that's we joked about that. Like, somebody had said to me, I think they said it to me, or I heard it somewhere, but like they wanted their Jesus to be a big guy.
Mm.
It's like, oh, he wasn't.
He's like, Jesus is yoked.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want him to be a big guy.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you want your God to be how you want him to be.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's like, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's very scary.
Yeah. How about just submit to God?
No.
All right. That's too much of a tangent.
Too much. Okay, and now I'm kind of jumping all over the place, and it'll make sense in a second why I'm jumping the way I'm
Okay.
jumping.
But so far I'm getting each one is one couple that emerges, and they're all in wooden boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reasons for the floods, at least majority-wise now, is because of wickedness.
Yeah. The funny thing is we don't think about the ark as a wooden box,
Yeah.
but it is made of wood, and it was sealed
Box.
up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing, is like it wasn't meant to sail. It was meant to save. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Pretty good.
Good alliteration.
Thank you. I was like, this could be good. Another word would work better, but I like that.
That's like the end of the sermon punchline. Your ark was not meant to sail. It was meant to save.
Ah, man. We're just literary.
So don't leave where you are. Stay there.
Stay
'Cause
there.
the people there, that they need you.
Stay planted.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
I
I have my sermon illustration for later.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
If you guys hear this,
Let's not flesh that out too much because I
We're
need to
gonna
write
save
it later.
yeah, true. You tell us later.
Okay, yeah. I'll preach that sermon next.
So I'm actually going to jump all the way down to, and so this isn't a specific Native American tribe. It's kind of a conglomerate of a lot of them.
Okay.
And so the tribes that include flood myths are basically all of them.
Okay.
Like to name a few, it's like the Navajo, the Hopi, the Cree, the Lakota, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Menominee, Haida, Seminole, etc., etc., etc. So it's like they all have their own versions of this.
Sure.
But this is kind of 2 points that are pretty universal through theirs.
And they're all from a similar landmass, so that kind of makes sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the flood wipes out wicked people. That's how they start. And it's like,
Nice.
okay,
Yeah.
there's a constant theme happening.
That's a good way to start a song.
Yeah. Flood wipes out wicked people.
Yeah. So don't be one.
Constantine ruined everything. And then a hero survives on a raft or similar method.
Still wood.
So it's like, yeah, there's some wooden craft
Yeah.
that a hero or a person survives on.
Sure.
And it's interesting that even that they call him a hero, because it's a differentiation with all of these. It's a differentiating this person from the wicked people that are being destroyed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even in Greek mythology,
Yeah.
hero was a common
Yeah.
word used.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's but just one.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah. And this one just specifies one.
How did he make more people?
And that's where I didn't, because all of those are different.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to put all of them in there.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
it's interesting though.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, so like those are those two big points that we see. This flood takes out wicked people,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone survives on something wooden.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of fascinating, just that alone.
It is, yeah.
But now I want to go to China.
Okay.
And
not that far from Turkey.
Yeah, not too far.
Yeah.
And this, I love how I'm going to say it. I apologize for my pronunciation on this one. The only reason I say it's because people still speak Chinese to this day.
That's true.
And they don't speak ancient Greek.
Actually, more people speak Chinese than any other language.
That's true.
I think.
Because isn't it Indian?
Well, but Chinese
Or
people also speak English.
I guess they have, yeah.
So
some of them do.
It could be that English is actually the pervasive language.
Yeah, we have to look that up.
Yeah.
For
another story.
This is Gunyu.
Okay.
So a massive flood threatens humanity. Yu controls the waters by digging channels and draining them. Yu becomes the first emperor of the Xia dynasty.
Why is that funny?
It's funny because it's just like, well, it's completely different than everyone else. And it's funny that that's the myth that comes from China.
Okay.
Where they're just like,
that it's very
how can
different?
I use this for political gain? Where he's just like, yeah, so that flood, it was going to take you guys out, but I saved you.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm your emperor.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a myth created by a guy.
That's what it seems like. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It seems
So
like
that's not even a cultural myth. That's just
some guy who wanted power. He's like, I want to be your emperor, and so I saved you all.
Yeah.
But even this is like, oh, there's a massive flood that threatens all of humanity.
Yeah, and he dug a trench.
But he's like, I got you.
Okay, so the flood myth there is that he saves the Chinese people.
Yeah. So the flood never actually hits them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that still means that it did happen.
Yes.
So that's kind of wild.
Even then, they're not denying that the flood happened.
Yeah.
Or was going to happen.
Right.
But it's funny, too, that he digs channels and drains the flood.
But it also means that...
like, he's just like, let me work real quick here.
I know. Just real quick.
Redirect this.
Yeah. That sounds like some giant stuff.
But it's funny. It's like, so this flood threatens all of humanity, but you, with a shovel,
yeah,
can dig enough.
Well, he didn't say shovel.
No, but I don't know what else they'd use.
He might have just been like, oh.
He's like, I got my backhoe. I'm just gonna.
It's just a massive one. Yeah. He just sings and then trenches are dug out.
Yeah.
That seems more.
It's kind of
like it could have happened.
Well, so yeah, that's true. Well, so I have a twist for you now.
Okay.
And something I haven't told you this yet.
Okay.
And the reason I'm using the Chinese myth as a pivot point.
Okay.
Because every myth I've read to you so far comes from a descendant of either Shem or Japheth.
Oh, all of those tribes?
Yeah. From like those two family lines.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the pivot point for the Chinese one is because we actually don't know directly who they're descended from.
Gotcha.
Because there's these mixes.
Yeah.
So they're like, it could be from any three of them or a combination of the three, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it is different, but it could be this conglomerate of all three lines combining with their own versions of the story.
Yeah.
And then this guy's like, nah, this is what happened.
Well, the thing that I like about that one though is it's a guy saying, all right, you guys have this flood myth.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that in order to tell you why I should be in power.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so China's still here because I
redirected the flood. Yeah.
I kept it safe.
I kept it self.
I kept it pretty self. That's awesome. Though.
That's great. So so now what I want to do is I want to read the myths from the lines, the descendants of Ham.
Okay, that's wild.
Yeah.
Where does this come from though?
So this would.
Can I ask the origin of the origin?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean? Like as far as the.
Like who says that it comes from Ham?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so it's like it doesn't come from Ham directly. Like we can't say that.
Yeah.
But it comes from the descendants of Ham.
Okay, because of the genealogy.
And looking at like where they migrate and where they go.
I see.
We're just kind of following that through. So there is some guesswork
because we know where they
we
went.
know these people went here.
Right.
And so most likely that's the people that developed into these civilizations.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
So it's kind of interesting.
It also makes sense why the flood myth carries through all these traditions.
Yes.
Because it's disseminated down through the sons of Noah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wild.
It's such a wild idea.
That makes sense though.
And it's funny because there's an interesting pivot here that happens when I switch to reading myths from the lines of Ham.
Okay.
And the Mesopotamian ones we're going to start with. This is Gilgamesh.
Okay.
And it's so funny how it starts. So we've seen up until this point that
real quick side note.
Yeah.
Have we talked about the Library of Nineveh?
We have not.
Which is where the story of Gilgamesh is found?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we've talked about that at all.
We should.
We should do just an episode on Gilgamesh too.
Yeah, but the Library of Nineveh apparently held a lot of ancient knowledge, which is interesting in the context of Nineveh. But then also, that's where we found the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Which I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good.
That's another episode.
That's good. That's a little like, we should write that down. Write that down for us, please.
Library of Nineveh.
So up until this point, all these myths shared the common theme of the flood, for the most part, is here to wipe out wicked people.
Yeah.
Or wickedness.
Right.
So in the Mesopotamian one,
okay,
humanity is creating too much noise.
I like that. That sounds like my house with my kids.
Yeah. And so it's like, so he's like, you guys are too loud.
Yeah.
So the god Enki warns a man, Utnapishtim, to build a boat, lands on a mountain, and releases birds to find dry land. The gods regret the flood and grant him immortality.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, it has nothing to do with wickedness. He was just like, I'm trying to take a nap.
It's just too loud.
And you guys are like, chill.
But that might allude to like the idea that making noise,
it could like something
is
evil.
Synonymous to to evil things happening.
Yeah.
But
I just love that contrast.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what?
It's too loud. The best way to do that is just go underwater.
Turn it down.
Yeah.
That's the volume button.
Just dump water on them.
That's the volume knob for God. It's just flood
just
or not.
Water.
When it gets a little loud, he just floods a little bit.
Yeah. But then he sends a rainbow. Don't worry, I'm not going to flood it. It's just going to rain a little bit.
Which is just
you
adding like, turning up the
there.
bass EQ.
Yeah. So when it rains, it's God saying, hey, just keep it down a little bit.
Keep it a little noisy.
Yeah. It's starting to get a little loud. Go back inside. Go back to your homes. Inside. Actually, that's a good point.
That is kind of interesting.
Like when the rain comes, people go back and they separate.
They kind of hide inside.
Yeah, but they separate.
Yeah, true.
And go to their own places.
Yeah.
When it rains. It's like kind of God being like, hey, don't gather anymore. Like go
this
separate.
This is how myths are created.
Yeah, exactly.
Modern myths. That should be the name of this segment.
Modern myths.
Modern myths.
No, that's like a History Channel
that's true.
doc.
Yeah,
I think
true.
it actually is. But anyways.
Is it really?
Probably.
Oh. It's
got to be. If not, sponsored by History Channel.
Let us know. Do we want that?
Modern myths. I don't know.
I just want the aliens guy.
Ancient aliens. Yeah.
So now looking at the Hindu myth, this is Manu and the fish. Vishnu, disguised as a fish, warns Manu of a flood. Manu builds a boat, and he restarts civilization with divine help.
So that doesn't show a cause of the flood.
Mm-mm.
It just shows
like there is a flood coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each of these are kind of showing that.
Yeah. It's kind of like removing that element of the reason. It's like there just is something happening.
It's just assuming that there is a flood.
Yes.
And so each of these gods are coming up with a way to...
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
And it's also interesting that Vishnu comes as a fish.
Yeah.
He's just like, let me just disguise as a fish real quick.
Vishnu sounds like a fish.
It kind of does.
Yeah. But that is interesting because they're not saying we created the flood.
Yeah.
They're saying we're finding a solution to the flood.
Yes.
So...
Which, honestly, that is something that we see in Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, let me warn this person because it's like, there's nothing we can do about this. This is going to happen.
Right, yeah.
And it's interesting that oftentimes within these, the flood or the warning of the flood, like a lot of it comes from this supreme god within their godhead.
Right.
So like we even see with Enki, he's a higher god than a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or Vishnu is a higher god than the rest of the Hindu gods.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's kind of interesting that even then it comes from one who's above the rest of them, or Zeus.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he is the king of the gods in that area.
Well, Zeus killed his dad though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he was eating everybody.
Stop eating people.
Stop.
That's just a good thing to live by.
And then now,
Sorry.
stop
Keep going.
eating people.
Yeah.
Rules for life.
I mean, if you are, please stop.
Please don't do it. It can't be that good.
It will not end well.
Now, one of our favorites, the Mayans.
Oh, yes.
So this is the Popol Vuh.
Say that again.
I'm not going to.
Baba Booey.
The gods flood the world to punish wooden people who lack souls.
Oh.
That's
But the wooden people float?
fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Survivors,
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Survivors flee into forests and become monkeys.
Whoa.
And then this is the second time the gods destroyed the earth, and we are currently living in the third world.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they're not the original flood. They're a second flood.
Well, not the first cataclysm.
Gotcha.
So you're saying yeah, the gods have destroyed the earth before.
Right.
This is the third. We're living in the third one, so they've done it twice.
Yeah.
And the reason for the second flood, or the second cataclysm, was because these wooden people that didn't have any souls.
That's weird.
And that opens up huge parallel.
It does.
Which is like, oh, that's interesting. But that's what I think. That's the thing that I like. Again, to say this about these myths is how it's like there are differences.
Yeah.
But each of them carries an element that we see in the Bible accounts of these myths. It's like all of these. There's some tie-in or some detail that the Bible has that all of these share in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. The flood was intended to wipe out evil on the earth.
Yeah.
Or like in that instance, wiping out those without a soul.
Yeah.
And those that had souls became monkeys.
Yeah.
Which then kind of points to an evolutionary conversation.
It does, which is
especially in the Mayan.
Very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then this one, which this one I think you'll like. It's fun. This is the Aboriginal Australian myth.
Okay.
Tidalik and the Frog.
Say that again.
I'm afraid to. Tidalik.
And the Frog.
And the Frog.
Princess and the Frog.
Oh, I'm sorry. He is the frog.
He is the frog.
Tidalik the Frog. I misread my own notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's his surname? The Frog?
The Frog.
It is, though. That's his surname.
It would be the surname.
Yeah.
Everything ties together.
It does.
We're good at this.
Here we are.
A giant frog drinks all the water.
Oh, thirsty.
Then animals trick him into laughing, causing a flood.
So he throws up.
The water restores balance to the land.
That makes sense.
That's one of those for me. It's like when I read this, like, wait, how did you even get to that?
They're in Australia.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So like a giant frog, he drank all of it.
Yeah.
So it's like you think it's like he made it a barren wasteland then.
The whole earth.
And then animals are like, we gotta make him laugh.
I love that though.
Yeah. It's the only way to get him to spit it back out.
Wow. That's a huge frog.
It's a big frog.
Yeah.
Think it like, how do you hold all that water?
Where's that frog now?
Well, he laughed too hard.
He just deflated.
He's like,
He's somewhere in the ocean.
He's somewhere there.
Probably.
So those are probably somewhere. Yeah. He's just drinking up some
just
water.
Just a big frog in the
just
ocean.
Hanging out.
I like that.
It's like, I'll drink it again.
Yeah, it's true.
So those are the myths I have for us today.
Okay.
Myths. And so I think again with it, and these ones I'm sure are more familiar to people because the common shared flood myths is a popular topic. The creation ones I don't think we hear very often, and even the other two categories that we'll be talking about in the next few episodes.
Yeah.
But for this one, it's like it is more familiar, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone kind of break each of them down a little bit, even just a summary of them.
Yeah, and see how they all have a through line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that even then, it's like we still see that through line.
Yeah.
Through most of them.
Right.
Or at least like there's always an element of that attaches to one.
Yeah.
Even in this one, it's like you're like, well, what's the through line here? It's like, well, what was the purpose of the flood? Biblically speaking, it was to remove wickedness and restore the balance, to start over.
Yeah.
And then we see in the Australian one, it's like, well, that's what it did.
Right.
The water restored balance to the land.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's restoring order.
Yeah.
It was something chaotic happened,
Yes.
and now order has been restored. So it's like there's always those elements of the point of the story
Yeah.
or details of the story that carry through every single myth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me, and that's why I even brought up, so the last ones that I read were all from the lines of Ham,
Okay.
those civilizations that descended from that.
Yeah.
How we see similarities based on the quote-unquote righteous lines,
Sure.
and then the differences or even similarities through the unrighteous line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I find that very fascinating.
Yeah.
How we see the similarities and differences in those stories, and their descendants and regionally where they're from.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I mean, I think that's the thing to note too, and to look at from top to bottom is like when we read the Bible is not in isolation. We've talked about this before, but it's in a lot of ways, it's a response to what's going on.
Right.
So the Bible is kind of the Lord telling us all this stuff that's happening around you. Here's why it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's happening. And all the stuff that you don't really understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
It's actually happening on the back end.
Mm.
It's happening in my space.
Yeah.
You know? And then pulling it into like, these are the effects on the earth that you see. And here's what you can do about that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll send Jesus. I'll send my son to make everything right in order for you to be restored back to me.
Yeah.
And in that way, like washed by the blood is an interesting parallel to the flood.
It is.
Especially to other flood myths, which you see the one flood myth where it was the blood of the God poured out.
Yeah.
In order to cleanse the earth from what it was, right? So you kind of see that again. So in some ways, Jesus' blood poured out on the cross is a bit of a new flood that washes us, resets us, right?
Yeah.
But without flooding and destroying the earth. Instead, it's a solution so that we can then choose him.
Yeah.
Because in the original flood, it was just wiping out all sin. It was just like, we gave you a shot, we're wiping it out. The sign is Noah.
Yeah.
If you see Noah, then follow Noah. But if you don't, like, we're wiping the whole thing out. So the whole thing gets wiped out. On the other end, there's no water flood that wipes out all of humanity, but instead there's a savior that we can choose, and we're washed by his blood.
Yeah.
And we're cleansed by his blood. And we go, and we've talked about this before, but baptism as going under the waters, but then reemerging, not staying under the waters, but reemerging.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Like there's this parallel too with the waters of the flood and the blood of God, the blood of the Son of God. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to tie all those things together.
It is cool. And that's what I think that's what I love about biblical prophecy, especially.
Yeah.
Is that even in Old Testament prophecy, when we look at that, it's like, oh, these have been fulfilled. And it's like, yes, it has. But also it hasn't fully yet.
Right.
In the way of like, it doesn't just mean one thing.
Yeah.
And we see that even in, I mean, we've brought this up even on Tipsy Theology before with Passover.
Right.
And it's like, well, that tells the story of the Israelites in Egypt and their exodus.
Yeah.
But it also tells the story of Jesus.
Right.
And what he did.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. And we see the warnings and the tellings of the flood, or even the coming of Jesus and the second coming of Jesus. Like, it all tells the same story in these literary elements.
Right.
That it's like, it doesn't just mean one thing.
Right.
It means all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all tied in, so nothing is happening isolated.
Right.
So like in the Bible, nothing is isolated, happening just for no reason. It's connected to something else.
Yes.
So it's happening because of or as a solution to, like it's like that's what's happening in the Bible. So that's why like looking at it as a whole and as a full picture is so important, because it all ties in.
Yeah.
It's like you have these elements. Yeah. But even like when they put the sword in the side of Jesus and the blood and the water flows out.
Yeah.
You have all these things that are like kind of tied together that it's kind of interesting, because that blood or that water that spills out kind of washes over the mountain that he's on, Golgotha.
Yeah.
Which Golgotha is the place of the skull.
That's so crazy.
And arguably, according to extra biblical myth, is where doesn't David take the head of Goliath?
Yeah.
And that's why it's called Golgotha.
Yeah, I think that's
the
right.
place of the skull.
Which even that, it's like, and this is me on a philosophical side, like taking it beyond what it is.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And it's like when we think about how this even ties to these flood stories, it's like, well, here's David taking the head of a giant Goliath.
Yeah.
And he's placing him here. But then we see in like the Norse mythology that it's like, well, it was a giant who was slain.
Yeah.
And his blood covered the earth.
Right.
And then we see Jesus on the same place where David laid that skull.
Yeah.
And on top of a giant, and his blood and his water is flooded.
Yep.
Flooded out of him. It's like, well, that's kind of beautiful when you think about these stories and these images that are created from that.
Well, especially because, and something that we're like kind of working towards, but the flood, the original flood, there's a result of the abomination that happens between the sons of God and the daughters of man in Genesis 6.
Yeah.
And that's wiped away, right? So that's that when you bring that up, like the giant that is of the line of the Nephilim in a Goliath, but then Jesus' blood washes over that the same way that the flood wiped them out.
Yeah, it covers the wickedness and destroys.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's all,
as the Mayans said, the wooden people.
without souls.
Without souls.
Yeah, that's wild. But that is interesting, though, because it's like you look around and you go, there's giants everywhere. Yeah. Like no matter where you look, there's giants everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, and it's typically the response, like the wickedness happening is typically or like the solution is typically a response to the wickedness of the abomination of tainting the human bloodline.
Yeah.
That those that were on the earth who wanted to rule the earth.
Yeah.
They weren't given reign, but instead humanity was through Adam and Eve.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we even see that with Jesus, who came from a pure bloodline.
Yeah.
As far as there's only humanity within him.
Right.
And he came as the perfect man.
Yes.
The perfect human.
Yeah.
And his blood washed out. And it wasn't a blood that was tainted by other things, but it was a fully human, pure blood.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so cool about that as well, is when we see even these stories of like, yep, this is the third time that something like this happened. Or the Aztecs, it might have been the Mayans or the Aztecs. I think it was the Aztecs. Like, we're living in the fifth creation. Yeah. And it's like, this is the fifth time that it's been destroyed and started over. I think all those are so interesting in that why does God, if it's true, why does God keep restarting things? Why is that image there? But now instead with Jesus, he didn't just restart again. Right. He said, no, actually, I'm going to do it differently this time. Sure. With the flood, that was him restarting everything. And he's like, no, this time I'm actually just going to redeem these people. Yeah. Because I want these people. And everything else, all the other ones that have fallen away, they're just going to go. Yeah. I'm just getting rid of them. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's part of the beauty of it too, where there's something different that happened. Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and it's interesting to get into like the different iterations of creation. Yeah. Especially in the instance that the Mayan gods are potentially going back to sons of God who rebelled. Right. And then the world being set over. So by the time you get to the Mayans, it is the third time. Yeah. Because then they're coming, and then the Mayans get wiped away as well. So then you have like these iterations that kind of go over and over again because of the wiping out of civilizations. Yeah. And civilizations that are intentionally worshiping not the one true God. Right. And making an abomination on the earth. Yeah. Which is originally God's temple that he was to dwell in. Yes. Yeah. And move back and forth and commune with man. So, yeah. 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 That's cool.
It's cool. Yeah. I think the thing that I love, and what I love especially about the Pentateuch, is these literary devices that are used. Yeah. And how it's like, again, it's not just telling one thing. It's not just like, yep, this is historically what happened and that's it. It could be telling that. It could not be telling that. Yeah. But it's like there's so many there's so much imagery that is pulled from this that applies to so many aspects of the Bible and the story that it's telling. And I think it's beautiful to kind of see all of that in play.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll end where we started.
Yeah.
Paul, what is the myth of the rainbow?
Well, gather around, gather around.
And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Martyr's Row, where we continue the myth conversation.
Let's get mythy.
Let's get mythy.
Terrible. That's terrible.
I like it. 3, 2, 1.